Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast series. With me here today is Miss Julie.
Hello everyone, my name is Julie and I'm Miss Lily, co-host of this podcast series. And I graduated from University of Languages and International Studies. So Miss Lily, can you please introduce our guest today?
100% Miss Julie. We have a huge honor today to be able to invite Miss Lina, a Ukraine-born business analyst from New York University, Abu Dhabi. She is currently working as a financial analyst on Wall Street. So we have such a privilege of having a diverse cultures in here with us today. So today's topic, we're going to discuss cultural difference in educational grounds. So the first questions for both of you girls and myself is, in what ways can school adapt their curriculum and teaching methods to be more inclusive of students from diverse cultural grounds? Lina, what's your take on this?
So my university is really multicultural. So the question of kind of like promoting cultural inclusivity is like always considered. So one of the ways, like from my perspectives, like for each class there's a syllabus. So it's usually up to professors what to put on the syllabus. So in terms of assignments, grading, and readings. And when it comes to reading, some professors prefer Eurocentric literature, some prefer Western literature. So I would say kind of like let students be exposed to all kind of literature. That's how you can like promote that cultural inclusivity. And also what I found really helpful for me is project-based learning, like working in groups, through collaborations, through communicating with other students, exchanging ideas, because we're all very different from different backgrounds, and kind of like learning how to work with each other and kind of like compromise. So I think the project-based learning.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I totally
agree. Your skill?
Yeah, I totally agree with Lina on that. Like when we have different culture students, so the only language we can communicate with is English. So it's not only tackle our ability to speak a different foreign language, but also to help us to work with together to understand each other's culture, Vietnamese or American or Australian. It will also help us in our relationship and also in our soft skills.
Oh, yeah, true. I agree with you. So in Australian curriculum, back in my previous school, the Australian curriculum and Department of Education, they want to make sure that they integrate, diversity in their curriculum by making sure that all students have access to knowledge of, diversity. So say, for example, schools will always make sure that teachers can prepare the programs in terms of integrating Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous history in Australian curriculum, which means that they get to teach and learn that in school. Same with history. So they get to learn about Asian, European, South American history, all get to learn within Australian curriculum. So they want to make sure that they have and they tackle that diversity and everybody feel included.
It's also really important for students to be open-minded and encounter really kind of like a multicultural community. So you have to not only blend in, but also like contribute from your side.
All right, moving on to the next question. How do cultural expectations around student behavior, say respect for authority, such as, group work versus individual work, differ? Or how can teachers navigate these differences? So what's your experience on this, Lina?
So another Western culture and Vietnamese culture are very different.
Sure.
Let's talk about respect for authority. It's like it's like a thing, right, in Vietnam to put teachers on a pedestal and kind of obey. And you have to be respectful, you have to be polite. But in Western cultures, I think we're encouraged to communicate, to kind of challenge the views, the opinions, even the professors. So I think I feel really comfortable in my school and my university to kind of speak up and express my opinion. So that's probably the main difference between Western cultures and Asian.
So same in Australia. So students are way more encouraged to speak their minds compared to Vietnamese students, I reckon. And we also reckon that it's very important when students can raise their voice, not at teachers, but like at their own opinion, and they can verbalize what are they trying to comprehend, what are they trying to figure out, so we can all work together. Because if they don't verbalize and if they don't know how to express themselves, it is going to be very difficult for educators, for schools, for carers, in order to help them grow professionally, academically, physically, emotionally. But what about you?
Well, from a personal point of view, I have studied in university, and I can see that just a few teachers, they still have that mindset. But as I study in a language school, right, so their minds are more open-minded, as Lina said. So they're more open to us, and we can communicate as friends or just like family members. But sometimes, and there's a few teachers that we just need to be really careful in talking to them, texting them, and sending emails. Like
The way that they carry themselves.
And the way you talk, it's just like Lina
You
said.
have to watch
earlier.
yeah.
It's not just about what you said, but it's also
How you
about
say it.
how you say it. Yeah.
Oh.
And I think that university may have a better situation than the high schoolers and the younger. So I think.
But you still have to perform within, your formality.
Yes.
But what about you? So everybody, Lina is actually born in Ukraine. So what is it like in Ukraine education? Is that similar like US or Abu Dhabi, or is it similar as a Vietnamese
It's
culture?
quite similar to the Vietnamese culture.
Oh, Ukraine.
Yeah,
Oh, the whole time I thought it's a European country. So
Imagine. So it's like putting professors, as I said, on a pedestal, and you really have to kind of like listen to them and kind of like
have to be obedient.
Yeah, and also very respectful, because they can literally, give you like an F, and that's it. Only because of your tone or like the way you said stuff.
So you're saying that if they're not happy with the way you
With
carry
you
yourself
personally,
or with your attitude, they have all the full authority
Yes.
to lower your score.
Yeah, so sometimes it's not
a bit
about
much.
your work.
Yes.
It's about your attitude.
Most of the times, actually.
Most of the
Yeah,
time,
in
that's
Ukraine.
bad.
Oh, that's a bit severe.
It is.
That is severe, because for the whole time I thought Ukrainian and Russian and other European countries are very similar. So usually they wouldn't carry such formality.
Well, I would separate European from Ukrainian and Russian, because it's more of like Eastern Europe. So
Right.
Soviet Union, it's a little different. It's
Okay.
very similar, I would say, to Asian kind of like educational systems.
Culture. Okay.
Yes, where you have to be, again, respectful. There's no such thing as like texting a professor, like sending a text. You have to email, or you have to
all the
go to
time.
school to an office hour and like talk to them properly. There's no such like a casual thing. It's like, let me just call my professor. No, you can't. So yeah, that's the.
Well, it is a very new information for me. Thank you for sharing. So now I know that Russian or Ukrainian,
Similar.
Eastern Europe,
Very similar.
you get they experience the same education. Okay, well, next question is, in cultures that emphasize memorization, such as Vietnam, how can schools introduce more inquiry-based learning methods that may be unfamiliar to some students? So, a lot of the time in Vietnamese educational system, we emphasize a lot on heart by heart lessons. And so in order to perform well in schools, you have to memorize on a whole nother level of information. So how do we cope, Miss Julie?
Well, I think we can start with like artistic side. Like we can boost their ability to visualization to study more art, physical education, and like to tackle their brain and to help them study with the visual information, and to help them not to think with not just numbers or letters. Do you think?
So in my university, we have like liberal arts program. Actually, we're all enrolled in it. Like the moment you get like accepted, you're enrolled in that program, which basically is you have to take one of like at least one class from another major. Let's say I'm like economics student, but I have to study arts as well. I have to take one class from like arts majors. So I think that's a really good thing to kind of like expand like students' horizons and kind of like instill in them like this sense of curiosity. It also gets you like out of your comfort zone, which is a really good thing. Like I think it's the best thing for you to grow as a person and kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. The minute that if schools have the luxury, say one day when Vietnamese educational system have the luxury to extend outside of the traditional curriculum, then it would, expand kids, curiosity. And in order for them, I really like the inquiry-based learning because it actually open up their, curiosity, and then they would get to learn more outside of the boxes. Critical thinking and their imaginative skills. Once they develop, skills to ask more questions, that's where they're more inclined to learn new things. And that's what we call constructed learning. A lot of time kids can learn from building the knowledge themselves. So once they learn how to do that, it would be definitely ideal.
I don't know about you guys, but I learn from experience, and that's the way it goes a long way. Like it's in the long term, it's like more kind of like beneficial.
So
for example, let's say even Ukraine, come back to Ukraine. There's a lot of stuff that I learned like in my school, and I don't remember.
Sure,
like, it's
theory statement.
Embarrassingly to admit, there should be like a social component in there for you like to kind of like remember it by heart. Just like not just theoretical, but also practical. I think.
So we have a saying that if kids, learn to ask, and if kids can ask, they already have that. Which means that once they raise the question, either or they will figure out the questions themselves. They'll figure out their answers on their own. So then comprehensive learning starts with, we both contribute in your own education.
Oh, also we have a thing in our university when professors don't really like give you an answer, but like show you the ways to get to that answer.
Okay, so next questions. What strategies can be used to bridge the gap between cultural expectation at home and in the classroom? What's your take on this, Lina?
So I think a good education starts at home. It starts with parents, especially. So I think I would say like parents have to educate themselves, like in a way to be more inclusive and then open-minded, and kind of like translate that to their children. So their children, when they come to an international society, they're prepared, they're ready. So parents.
What about you, Miss Julie?
Yeah, I also agree with Lina. Everything starts from their parents because kids learn from their parents. So if their parents can learn and to educate themselves, as Lina said, is to engage in the different and into the multicultural environments and knowledge, they could like teach it to their kids and to help them engage more in the international environment.
It's very hard when it's a generational thing.
It's
to change. Especially, as parents, they're scared to change too. Imagine you're like in this cultural stigma, and you're like the first and the only one to want like to get away. All of the attention will come to you, and obviously,
if you mean like if they are living in their comfort zone for so long,
why would I get out?
It is challenging, but yes, it is. I agree that lack of understanding and lack of communication can sometimes result in a major gap between that cultural expectation. So once I guess previous generations compared to us, like the older generations, they would have different perspectives. Some of them willing to learn and some of them ain't. But with us, like we are like the current generation with the new generations. I think we would have, more opportunities to grow as we are more exposed to the outside world compared to them.
Especially with the advancements of like technologies. We
Yeah,
have access to literally everything. So
everything.
So I think at this point we should be like educating ourselves on like other cultures and be more like inclusive.
Yeah, which
Yes.
means that our future generations wouldn't have to suffer. Okay.
Exactly.
Do you have final question, Miss Julie?
Of course. So you guys are international students, right? So what challenges do you guys face due to the cultural differences in professor attitudes and teaching styles? How about you, Lina?
Oh my god, I'm always so scared to participate because in Ukraine, I mean, it's up to you to raise your hand or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you come to university, there's like a separate percentage in your grade for participation, so you have to participate to get an A.
Right.
And it's always so stressful for me. It was really stressful in the beginning because I'm not used to like speaking up. It's really intimidating. So I think that was like one of the most like scary things that I had to kind of like adapt to. Yeah, what about you?
I'm the same thing. I would have to acclimatize. So my first time going to Australia, and then we would have to go in a circle, introduce ourselves.
Oh, I did that too.
Yeah, it is so intimidating. I'm like, now all eyes on me. I'm not used to this kind of attention.
Mm-hmm.
But once we are so, immersed in such environment, we're kind of used to it, and we kind of want to raise our voice up there, and we want to show people our opinions.
There's also like a language barrier. So sometimes you want to say
language
stuff,
barriers is a
but
thing.
you can't. Because
You don't know how to express it.
Yeah, you don't feel confident if you're like not in your native language.
Yeah.
So I think that also is like really like a challenge
It
for us.
is very tricky. Language barrier, cultural differences.
Yes.
How are we going to say this without being judged? Because we are in such a, we're such in a sheltered environment back at home, either in Ukraine or in Vietnam. We only know that these are our knowledge and we have, well prepared in advance. But in Western cultures, they promote speaking up.
And challenging the views.
Yes, and challenge your views.
Yes.
And I have no idea that teachers actually enjoy being challenged.
Yes, I agree with you, which leads me to my next one, which is question of authority. So when you come to university, you're encouraged to participate and speak up, right? But then coming like from Ukrainian and Vietnamese educational systems, it's really hard for us because we were told to be really respectful
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like obey teachers and professors.
Yes.
So we had to kind of suppress our thoughts and opinions and kind of blend in, kind of like match others. But when you come to university, you're encouraged to speak up, you're encouraged to challenge the views and kind of like express your opinions from different viewpoints. So that's probably was one of the most challenging things for me to kind of like to have the courage to and the confidence to speak up.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So I reckon the biggest difference between Vietnamese educational system and Western educational system is that their focus on students. So I was in a severe cultural shock as well when I became a teacher in Australia. So in Vietnam, majority of the time, they would place a lot of emphasis on kids who perform academically well in school, but it's a completely different story in Australia, where if kids who show their competence in learning by themselves, we would promote their independent learning and place more emphasis on kids who are struggling. So make sure that no one left behind. So yeah, what is your take on this, Miss Julie?
Well, I just want to say that the biggest, also the culture shock that I first got into the university, like when I was in high school, I was scared to speak up and like to express my personal point of views because it would be like the opposite to the teachers and would be scared to be judged. But in university, we are encouraged to speak our mind and to share our personal perspective and to to share it with our friends and to do the critical thinkings together to think all the sides of the issues. And I think that is a really good point to tackle the students' ability.
I agree with you. Oh, wow, guys, we have answered so many good questions in this podcast series.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Myself, Lily, I'm here with Miss Julie and Miss Lina, our guest speaker. See you guys next time. Bye.